G'day viewers, how are you? We've made it to the end of another week. Congratulations! It's been a bit of a tough week with some of the news stories and need a drink or two to get through it, so cheers. There's a whiskey sour made with some bourbon I infused with chili rock candy, which both gives it a bit of zing, a real chili taste, and the rock candy's coloured it. The bourbon made the bourbon redder than usual. So this mix is a bit pink, which, both, yeah, it's a good colour. But also, ever since I found out there is a group of truly sad, weird little individuals who are obsessed about what I drink, and like they're convinced that a guy drinking cocktails, that's the collapse of Western masculinity. Fuck you, losers, it tastes good. But yeah, I delayed this video 24 hours because I wanted to see how the situation with the hearings about Judge Kavanaugh in the US turned out, and whether or not he'll end up on the Supreme Court. Because it was looking like no matter what happened, the Republicans were just going to go ahead and nominate him in the face of all convention. But the way it turned out was really quite fascinating, because if you are at all objective, well, you could get a few things if you're going to be objective. And virtually the only through and through true thing I heard from the Republican side of things was the Democrats are playing politics. The Democrats are delaying and blocking this by any means necessary because they don't want a confirmation hearing before the midterm elections, where they are likely to do well and have more say in what happens afterwards. That is definitely true. And honestly, anyone who won't acknowledge that is being, at best, disingenuous. At the moment, the Democrats have no real power. They've just got to try and make a few Republicans feel bad so they won't vote in favour of Kavanaugh. Whereas if they end up controlling the House after the elections, they actually have considerably more power in who's nominated to the Supreme Court. So yeah, by any means necessary, they would try to block this nomination. At the same time, it is obvious to anyone who can bring themselves to be objective. Kavanaugh has lied repeatedly under oath. The idea that he didn't sexually assault any women, but particularly the main accuser, is obviously ridiculous, because it hasn't even been their main defense. They started off with, he didn't do it. And then that morphed so quickly into, well, is it that big a deal? Really? If as a teenager he sexually assaulted someone? They kept trying to go with attempted rape because they're trying to suggest that isn't a crime. It wasn't a crime until he full-on committed rape, which is like, it's the Sideshow Bob defense when he was complaining about being in jail for attempting to murder Bart Simpson. He's like, what is attempted murder? Do they give out a Nobel Prize for attempted chemistry? Well, do they? And so rather than admit to what it was, a serious sexual assault, they kept bandying about attempted rape because they'd convinced themselves that sounded less bad. But again, they threw away, they stopped saying he didn't do it. They said it was not that serious. And then it morphed into the truly bizarre someone coming out of left field going, you know what? It had maybe happened, but it wasn't Brett Kavanaugh. It was this other guy. And he names someone completely innocent and go, it was that guy. And hilariously, the idiot who put that about at first is the president of something called the Ethics Committee or something. And it's like, wow, that's kind of like the opposite of ethics. And he resigned straight after. It's like, oh, yeah, that was probably out of line, just slandering someone like that. And of course, Kavanaugh's defenders are going, oh, you're slandering him. Well, when you look at the testimonies, with Dr. Ford being really calm and measured and precise, and Kavanaugh whining, screaming, crying. It's like, you talk to anybody who has experience in the areas of sexual assault, the reporting of sexual assault, and how both perpetrators and victims act afterwards. The accuser was consistent and believable, and Kavanaugh was inconsistent, a bullying, whining piece of shit, and not at all plausible in his denials. But deny he did. And honestly, if nothing else came out of it, someone did put a funny video together, because they pieced together, they remembered, hey, remember Jules in Pulp Fiction? Samuel Jackson character abusing a guy called Brett at the start, because there's Brett Kavanaugh, and they spliced a few things together. Worked amazingly well.
And I never sexually assaulted anyone.
Yes, you did! Yes, you did, Brett!
It's really worth checking out the whole thing, so look for a link. 60 seconds of your time, really worth it. You've probably seen it anyways, all over the internet. But yeah, that bit of lightheartedness aside, it's a pretty ugly procedure, and I'm kind of glad I waited the 24 hours, because although it's there's no resolution yet, but there was actually an agreement that there would be an FBI investigation. They're going to delay it for about a week. They didn't say an FBI investigation that will run until they've finished their investigation. They went FBI investigation that runs for a week, which is a bit arbitrary. But it is interesting. Like, I saw an article in the website for Australia's ABC that said, if he lies once, he's gone. Which is interesting because technically that is correct. Now, it's beyond belief that Kavanaugh hasn't lied multiple times under oath at the hearing about his alcoholism, about the sexual references in his high school yearbook that he now claims aren't sexual references. And it is a crime to lie to the FBI. It doesn't have to be about the thing they're investigating. But if they get you in a lie, in a formal interview, that's a crime. And that should be an automatic disqualifier for Kavanaugh. I say should because we look at the last 2 years, nothing matters. Nothing makes sense. Nothing matters. But it's interesting. This is also the reason Trump's advisors don't want him to answer any subpoenas, because they know him. They know he's basically incapable of getting through an interview without lying. And if you are under oath and they ask you a simple question that they know the answer to, that is not even the thing they're trying to prosecute you under, and you lie, you just broke the law and they've got you and they can work you from there. And if Kavanaugh lies in the FBI investigation, then, well, he's broken the law. And if he doesn't lie, he will have to contradict what he said in the hearings. Or he has to just try to brazenly lie to the FBI and appear consistent and compelling to them, which he hasn't shown much of an ability to do, quite honestly. It's been interesting because that Pulp Fiction video I was talking about, I shared it on Facebook and it went bananas. Like, millions of people saw it, got shared thousands and thousands and thousands of times, which totally took me by surprise. But I got to see all the comments attached to it. Thousands of comments from people. And this is really quite an amazing example of how split people are along partisan lines. It really does seem like nothing is going to sway the advocates for Kavanaugh or Trump to change their minds at all. But that's not who's going to be interviewing him. It's going to be the FBI. He's going to have to come across as consistent and believable and truthful to the FBI. And he doesn't know what witnesses they're going to bring. He should know, because he knows the people who've accused him. But yeah, him fronting the FBI, who knows? Maybe it'll be dun dun dun, caught him in a lie, he's out. Or dun dun dun, he just held to his lies the whole way and nothing fucking matters and he's going to be on the Supreme Court. Who knows? It's all unfolding. But yeah, when I read this article on the ABC, like, if he lies once, he's out. I'm going, okay, technically that's true. That also sounds like wishful thinking because, like I said, based on the evidence the last 2 years, things like truth and even basic human decency don't seem to matter anymore. Speaking of ABC, that's the other big story that I've seen this week. It's big in Australia, probably not heard of anywhere else. But the boss of the ABC, in quite dramatic fashion, was sacked. One Michelle Guthrie, just out of the blue, sacked. She didn't like it. She's threatening legal action, but the board went, nah, she has to go. Now, there were lots of stories that the staff at the ABC didn't like her. They didn't think that she was qualified for the role. They didn't think she represented them that well. And the board decided to go with it. And they go, wow, that's dramatic. And I thought, this is not going to be the end of it. No way. So, and then about a day later, it came out that the chairman of the board, a guy called Justin Milne, who's appointed by the Conservative government, as pretty much all of the board are, and he had been sending emails telling the head, Michelle Guthrie, she should sack certain journalists, presenters, because the government didn't like them. Now, for those who don't know how Australia's ABC works, it's the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. It's government funded, taxpayer funded, but it has a strict charter to be impartial. And depending who you are, you're going to have a different view on how it delivers on that. But it's in the charter. They are not supposed to just toady to the government. So honestly, particularly in this situation, but pretty much in any situation around the world, if there's a politician who's upset at a journalist, there is a fair chance the politician is the one not doing their job because the journalist is doing their job. And that makes the politician upset. In these cases, particularly, really high-profile, experienced, respected journalists, this guy Milne's going, sack him! Malcolm Turnbull doesn't like him! Sack him! And this never happened. They were never sacked. But then all these other stories came out, and as soon as those emails came out, I was like, okay, that motherfucker's not lasting till the end of the week. This was on Wednesday. He won't last till the end of the week. And he didn't even last through Thursday. Resigned on Thursday. And as a lot of people have pointed out, well, the entire board is compromised. Like, they were all, appointed by, this complete tool, Mitch Fifield, the communications minister, who won't stop whining about the ABC. And it's on record, this government said, basically they're always adversarial with the ABC and said, it's just been these left-wing cronies. We're going to establish a board that's going to judge people on merit, not on who they know. Okay, you've got a merit board and you set the rules they're going to follow. And then half the board were appointed directly by the communications minister, even after this board that they set up said, no, that person is not up to scratch. Quite honestly, they're really not. Anyway, don't care. Putting them on. Like, you're meant to have some understanding of media to be on the ABC board. And just one example, he put on someone who's from a fucking mining company. And no experience in the... So, the government's contradicting themselves repeatedly, pressuring their appointees on the board to sack journalists. The boss wouldn't sack the journalists, so got fired by the board. And now the whole board is compromised, and I know some people have gone and say, get rid of the whole board, wipe them out, put them in, and then you get all these establishment people going, no, without a board of directors, everything will fall apart, which is the most ridiculous and typical of the fucking money classes. It's just like, no, you have to have a board of respectable people running things. When the fuck has a board of directors ever done anything in the day-to-day work? As if the day-to-day work of any business is going to fall apart because you had to change the board of directors. Board of directors are meant to do long-term things and ensure governance and stuff like that. They don't do the day-to-day stuff. The concept that the ABC would fall apart because the hacks appointed to the board by the fucking government should be gotten rid of is absolutely farcical and shows how out of touch they are. It's like, if we're not running everything, it'll fall apart. fuck you. That's not even remotely true. But, I mean, you know, we're so close to the next federal election. I think I can't delay it for more than about 6 or 7 months from now, which is probably not enough time for the happy clapper scummo PM to do too much damage. He doesn't have the numbers in Parliament to pass any acts, pass any laws that will change anything much, but they can change, you know, the tone of things, and look forward to being royally fucking thumped at the next election, because the way they're carrying on is some serious bullshit.